friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to Wrestle Juice. It's time for another edition of Good Idea, Bad Idea. You guys left like 150 ideas for Good Idea, Bad Idea. Let me remind you how it works. You guys give me a pro wrestling topic that might be controversial or an idea you have for a potential pro wrestling storyline, and I tell you whether I think it's a good idea or a bad idea. If you want in on this, if you want your good idea, bad idea take to be read on the show, be sure you hit that subscribe button and the notify bell to make sure you're always notified when I put up one of the threads for this. Let's go ahead and dive into it. First up from blah, blah, blah 14. This is a good idea, bad idea. SAMI ZAYN turning on the OG Bloodline during War Games. The question I have to ask when considering this is, would it make sense for the story? Of course, Roman Reigns ate the pin in that last... Well, I guess there's a couple different ways to approach this. Number one, from a creative standpoint, Roman Reigns eating the pin in the last match kind of necessitates the OG Bloodline winning at War Games simply because they have to motivate a Roman Reigns Solo Sikoa match over the next couple months, whether it's at Saturday night's main event or maybe, I don't know, at WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, something like that, because they're going to have that match for the Ula Fala. And I feel like if Roman's team loses at War Games, that's not going to work. And if Sami Zayn turns on the OG Bloodline, sure, it sets up some potentially interesting feuds between Sammy and Jay, Sammy and Jimmy, Sammy and Roman. And I don't think that's a terrible idea. That being said, I don't really think it makes sense. Understanding, of course, that Roman Reigns had Sami Zayn under thumb for a long time. Sammy, I understand his point of view as a character, feeling that itch. He did have a good time in the Bloodline, until he realized that it wasn't such a good time because Roman was power mad. He proved his point against Roman Reigns, though. He beat the Usos with Kevin Owens for those tag titles at WrestleMania. He proved himself. He doesn't need Roman Reigns. He's back because he wants to be back. So I can, although I maybe I would understand from your point of view if the counter is, yes, but he knows what Roman Reigns is, kind of like Seth Rollins is saying, he knows what Roman Reigns is, therefore, he would want to take him down from the inside, which would be kind of a face thing to do, even if it's a heel move on the OG Bloodline. And I know Triple H likes to have heels who have like sort of a good point to make. I just don't really see it happening with Sammy. He's like a super over babyface, and he's kind of like the reason why we're at with the OG Bloodline reunion. Everybody loves it. I mean, would he side with the Solo Sikoa Bloodline? Is that the situation there? I don't know if anybody would want to see that, but it could make for some story, for an interesting story beat. However, for right now, I'm going to say bad idea, not because I think that there's not story potential there, because I think it would probably just put a dampener on everything. Right now, the OG Bloodline is incredibly popular, and you do need to motivate that Roman Reigns Solo Sikoa match. I know I've seen plenty of people say, hey, man, the bad Bloodline really needs this win. They just got the big win, though, with that whatever that last match was. I guess the Saudi Arabia match. It was, what, 3-on-3? Wasn't that what the situation was? Something like that. So, yeah, anyways, I don't know, man. I think that it's possible that, given the whole, like, Sammy pulling a phone out of his pocket and throwing on the couch or remote control, whatever it is, I think it's a possibility that, that could happen. I just don't really see it happening. I don't think it's a good idea for it to happen. Things are going really good right now with OG Bloodline, and I don't know if they'd want to spoil all that. It might leave a bad taste in people's mouths, and I just don't know that it would fit in with Sammy's character motivation, because I like that stuff to sort of remain true. All right, we're heading into full gear, and Nate Fuentes has a good idea, bad idea topic. He said Darby Allin is world champion. So I think it was a couple of months ago, Dave Meltzer had mentioned that the idea of Darby Allin as AEW World Champion had been thrown about by AEW Creative and Tony Khan. And it seems like maybe that's possibly where they're headed with this mock story. It's getting Darby to the point where he's world champion guy. As of this past week's Dynamite, I don't think that's the case. I think that Darby, for him to be realistically seen as a world champion, he's got to go through a long-term story where he learns how to be championship guy. He had a really good run as TNT champion, which I really liked because back then he figured out ways to win. And these days, that's a lot more spotty. He took a clean loss to Claudio, or Claudio just absolutely wrecked the guy, ragdolled him. And Claudio's essentially like a henchman for Mox. I really like Claudio. I think he's great. But he's like Mox's second or even maybe third option after Pac. I feel like from an audience standpoint, we need to see a wrestler get to the point where they understand how to be a world champion. We got there with Swerve Strickland, for example, and I thought it was really effective. And I thought that Swerve being world champion was a really, really awesome idea. And I thought it was a decent title run. And to be honest with you, in retrospect, I kind of wish that he had either lost to Danielson and got it back at WrestleDream or just didn't lose to Danielson. I get it. Tony Khan wanted Danielson in the lineage, and it made for a really good feel-good moment. I thought it was awesome, but I feel like Swerve really should have got that title back, and him and Lashley should be feuding over this thing. But whatever, we're at where we're at. And Orange Cassidy is going to lose here at Full Gear. Like, I think we all know that. After him, it seems like Darby's next in line, but having just lost to Claudio, how does that make any sense? I'm assuming maybe the story's going to be they already saw Bryan Danielson get almost murdered by Mox, and now Orange Cassidy's going to take a brutal loss to Mox, and they're going to do the same thing to him, and maybe that'll unlock something in Darby where he'll be like, oh man, I really need to stop ragdolling myself in these matches and be a little bit more of a fighter and less of an underdog, if that makes any sense. Because right now his whole story is he just gets beat up, and then he'll either win or he'll lose. But the template is the same every time. He just gets absolutely wrecked, and he can either figure out, like towards the end, out of desperation, how to pull off a win out of nowhere, or, as is the case with Claudio on Wednesday, he just straight up loses. We need to see the transformation, though. We need to see the guy make that realization how to be a winning wrestler and not just be a guy who gets ragdolled all the time. If they can crack that and it's believable from a story point of view, I guess it would pop a crowd. I'm not really big into the idea. I kind of think it's a bad idea until we see a lot more from Darby Allin as a potential world title guy. Also, from a business standpoint, I don't know what's the best idea in the world. You got two other guys, Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, who are the building blocks of the future of your company. And I feel like one of those two guys should be the one to take it off of Jon Moxley. That's my personal opinion. I think and then if Swerve does it, then you put it on Bobby Lashley after that. You know what I mean? Like, you have Bobby Lashley in your company. So I don't know. I kind of think that Darby Allin is world champion right now, 2024, even 2025. Bad idea. But I think that they could tell a story where it would make sense. I can't get over somebody in the comments either here at WrestleJuice or Going in Raw said Darby Allin is essentially a modern day cool version of Spike Dudley. And these days, that's kind of true. I don't know what happened. Like, he really has not grown that much over the past 5 years. I've really enjoyed his bit with Sting, his relationship with Sting over the past couple of years. I thought that was really cool. But, like, he should have come out of the Sting relationship like a winning wrestler. And instead, like, he loses to Claudio on Wednesday. Like, what is that all about? I don't know. Not huge on that. Benjamin Lacey says, good idea or bad idea? The Hurt Syndicate recruiting Athena. I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea because Athena's awesome. And if nothing else, it would put her on cable television. Dude, I understand that like Ring of Honor is basically the Athena show at this point. And that's great for people who pay for Ring of Honor, the Honor Club. But I don't. And I love Athena and I like to see her on my television. So yeah, that needs to happen. She needs to be getting that call up to AEW pronto. From what I understand, her and Billy Starks, I think, are having a match for the world title there. And so I'm assuming Billy Stark's going to win that, and then Athena will get her call up. I hope that's going to be the case. And putting her with the Hurt Syndicate, I think would be amazing. I do think the Hurt Syndicate needs to grow their ranks. I know right now it's MVP, Shelton, and Bobby. Putting that card out for Leo Rush. I wish they'd have explored that a little bit more when Swerve and him had that match. Trying to get Caster away from Bowens. I think that could be a cool idea. There's a couple different people out there I think that could really work well with the Hurt Syndicate, and I wish they would grow their ranks. I kind of feel like they should be the real kind of NWO story if they're going to do that kind of thing where a faction starts growing and taking over. I'd kind of prefer to see it with the Hurt Syndicate rather than Mox's group. One Time Bear 5681 says, good idea, bad idea. Adam Cole choosing AEW over WWE in hindsight. Listen, hindsight's always 2020. I think that he had a couple of unfortunate injuries in AEW. Otherwise, I think that he would have been AEW champion. I would be really surprised if Adam Cole himself was like, oh yeah, I should have stuck around AEW, WWE. I mean, I personally think that Vince McMahon was on the verge of burying him so bad that I don't know if he could have recovered from that. I know LA Knight did. He recovered from the Max Dupree thing. But if they would have had Adam Cole change his name and become a manager, I don't know what the time frame would have been, how long it would have been that Vince McMahon would have been running things and Triple H would have had the ability to been like, okay, no, we're going to bring Adam Cole back to being like just one of the best wrestlers out there. But I mean, what's done is done. I'd be surprised if he had very many regrets. I know him and Britt Baker are not a couple anymore, but like, you know, he was with her romantically. They were romantically linked and they were together, and he probably didn't regret that, you know, being able to spend time there with her. And then, of course, he's got a lot of great friends there. So I don't know, man. He had like a huge debut. He was featured in a prominent role. He still is. So I don't think there's any regrets on his part. I mean, who knows? Who knows what would have been? Would he have been at a better place in WWE right now? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. MPR says, good idea, bad idea. AEW going back to 4 pay-per-views a year. Bad idea. I don't see what the upside would be. You're leaving a lot of money on the table. And on top of that, like, I don't know, I guess you'd have special themed episodes of like Dynamite again. But I think what the real good idea, bad idea here is them pairing, like getting rid of Rampage and not doing any more television. Like Dynamite and Collision, and that's it. Dynamite and Collision, whatever this Shockwave thing is, don't do that. Don't add more programming. Just do your 4 hours of television. Ideally, it'd go back to 2 hours of Dynamite or 1 3-hour Dynamite a week, which I don't know if anybody'd want that either. But if you make that one weekly spot a premium spot, then you got to figure attendance is going to start going up again because you don't have opportunities to go to other shows. You're starving your audience of more products, so they're going to want it more. That's my guess on that one, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I know Tony Khan has said ideally he has 6 hours of television a week. I just don't know that's the best move for growing your business, but what do I know? I'm sitting here and I've got a YouTube channel and he has a whole television empire. So, you know, what do I know? But no, going back to 4 pay-per-views a year, I don't creatively or business-wise, I don't think that makes sense. I think that's a bad idea. Nathan Guffey says, good idea, bad idea. AEW going to smaller venues. I know a lot of people think this is a good idea, and it probably is a good idea if it saves the company money. My only thing about this is, what will it look like on television? Because when you run the big arenas, even if you have like only a quarter of the place filled out, at least it looks big. It looks big budget. It looks main roster. If you go to smaller venues, depending on the size of the venue, you don't want to look like weekly TNA. You don't want to look like that. If you can get a 2,000 seat venue and fill it up and it still looks big and you're still able to have like a big stage, then great, do it. I'd say do it. But if your television starts to look small, then I just think that hurts your product. It hurts the perception of your product. But if it makes sense from a business standpoint, I guess it's a good idea. If they can make it look really cool, then great idea. But if it's going to look rinky-dink, bad idea. It all depends on the execution. Alan Martinez says, good idea, bad idea. The Star Trek movie starring Chris Pine. You know what? I like those movies. I like the first one, and I actually like the third one. The second one, the one with Khan, wasn't really into that one. Good idea, though. The cast is really good. You can't argue with J.J. Abrams, coming on board, even though the second one really wasn't all that great. But yeah, I don't know. Good idea. And more Star Trek is good, in my opinion. Amir from Great Iran says Jericho, one last WWE run. Probably a good idea. I'm over him in AEW. I think that, you put him in WWE, you have some creative people behind him, and he gets a fresh coat of paint. Probably a good idea. I think it's probably a better idea just for him to take some time off or just straight up retire. Do like a, before pay-per-view a year schedule, something like that. But here's the thing. Last time I checked, his segments generally pop their ratings, and not a lot of things do pop their ratings, but Jericho segments do. So like the wider casual audience still likes him. So what do I know? Jericho, one last WWE run? Sure, good idea. Yeah, probably good idea. Yeah, for who? For me? Yeah, he's probably still entertaining. Diabetic Man, we'll end on this one. Says, good idea, bad idea, control your narrative. So, I'll always say anything that pays more wrestlers to wrestle is a good idea. I think the idea behind control your narrative, what I got from the idea was this is kind of a Fight Club situation where, it's kind of like an underground, like a Raw Underground type thing. Really wonderfully filmed vignettes. And then they started getting weird with like, hey, you can have like a room that you pay to go in, and then you can talk as much shit to a wrestler as you want. Which then starts to dive into the weird social media IWC culture thing. And I'm not really huge into that. It turned it out. I'm just sitting here as a fan watching what happens, right? The perception of control your narrative, and please don't get sensitive about this, at a certain point became kind of like MAGA wrestling. Take that for what you will. And I think it sort of became a bit of a joke, not the actual promotion, but the idea of the promotion. People be like, oh, control your narrative. Like, what are they doing over there? So I don't know. I think the idea was good. Like all the film segments were good. Or the stuff that like, the pay-per-view, I heard the first pay-per-view was pretty good. It's just somehow, some way, I think because of the time that we were living in and some of the wrestlers they were signing up and some of the things some of those wrestlers were saying on social media, it kind of felt like it was a certain type of thing that I don't know. I don't think that it was really trying to go for that originally. But I think, shout out to EC3 for, I think it was creative stuff. It was a different approach to pro wrestling. So, good idea. I say good idea. Just sort of morphed into a certain perception among certain wrestling fans that it was a thing that I don't think they intended it to be. The room thing was weird though. Like walking into a room and being able to like talk shit to her. It's like, hey, I bought this meet and greet for Braun Strowman. I'm supposed to go into this room with him? What's that all about? I'm supposed to talk shit to him? Why would I do that? I'm paying $100 for a meet and greet. Nobody's going to pay $100 to go into a room with Austin Aries and talk shit to him. Maybe some people did. I don't know. It sounds awkward as fuck. That's not what I'm going to a pro wrestling show for. I'll do my talking when he's in the ring and be like, hey, boo, But I don't want to pay $100 to go into a room and talk shit to a guy. That sounds weird. Why would I do that? That's a terrible use. That's a bad idea for that $100. I don't know. Anyways, hit that subscribe button, hit that notify bell. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you guys around.